Early one morning I was driving through the moon landscape past Konnikontas. I was on my way to Spitzkoppe to provide a base camp for two astrophotographers who were trying to get a time lapse of the Milky Way through the rock arch at Spitzkoppe. And I'm looking at this overcast sky and I'm thinking, man, they are not going to get a lot of stars tonight. I really hope it clears up later on. After a quick pit stop near Spitzkoppe, I arrived to find the place still overcast. But I did have the time to look for a perfect place to make camp. And around sundown, the camp was made. There was 2 tents put up with a stretcher and a mattress each, and I set up the caravan that I was towing as the kitchen. It has a nice fridge and light and everything, and then we settled in for the night. As expected, the clouds obscured the stars and there was not much to see. The overcast skies continued for the whole 3 days. During the day it was a blessing, cooling down the heat of the day. If you stay still for a while in the camp in the Spitzkoppe area, the wildlife will come to you. On this camp, the birds were the first that came to pay a visit. With their fantastic camera gear, our photographer friends were able to capture some amazing shots. We had put down some water to attract the birds and to keep them in one area to make them easier to photograph. The many species that came to visit made fantastic subjects for us to hone our skills on and to compare our equipment later. A few lizards also made their appearance and were promptly photographed. This elephant shrew lives under the rocks near the camp, and I was so happy to see it. With their quite mobile noses and tiny round bodies, they are just too cute. When we put down a seeded brownie, the birds arrived in massive numbers. I guess they were arguing about something, because soon a fight broke out. The whole atmosphere changed with a peculiar sound the other birds watching the fight were making. Very unnerving, but we were riveted and wondering who is gonna win this fight.
Wow.
So much anger in such tiny little bodies. Anyways, back to the splendor of our surroundings. Our photographer friends were shooting wildlife in the grassy fields, and I was testing out different shots of the arc, hoping that the skies would clear for a good night of stargazing. Our camp was about as close to the rock arch as you could get, and we could pick any angle of the arc or the surrounding rocks for maximum effect later on. This little truck was driving around every day, cleaning out fire pits and rubbish bins and making sure the campsites were in perfect shape. The truck itself was not, and it looks like the front wheel bearings are collapsing if you look closely enough. Back at the campsite, we were enjoying the wide variety of birds coming in for a visit, and admittedly our photographer friends are much more knowledgeable in birding than I am, so I learned some of the bird names from them. This little ground squirrel also came around, and shame, it must have been parched as it spent a long time drinking. We also caught a fleeting glimpse of a hyrax, and that was it for the wild animals. We did get some pretty epic sunset shots, with the mountain adding form and texture, the dramatic clouds adding depth and color to just about every shot, and sometimes a patch of sunlight would shine through. On the final day of the camp, the clouds cleared the tiniest bit, and we were able to get some kind of time lapse of the Milky Way. All too soon the time was up, and we had to accept that we simply won't get the clear starry skies that we had hoped for. There is just no controlling the weather. After the final breakfast under epic cloudy skies, the two gentlemen photographers carried on with their tour of Namibia, and I packed up the camp and went home. Thanks for watching the video. Feel free to explore this channel for more awesome Namibian locations.